I've made a lot of videos on the subject of biological immortality and life extension, so if you want to talk about the feasibility of the whole thing and a lot of other factors, go and watch those. This is a moral argument, specifically a moral argument in favor of biological immortality from an environmental perspective. Are you a fan of fantasy media? I know I am. I think it's cool as shit. And have you noticed that, like, the elves in these works tend to be ultra green? They tend to care a lot about their surroundings, their environment, the nature that they live in, and they're often just straight up an analogy for people who care about the environment as opposed to the short-sighted humans who just want to exploit it for profit. This is because elves have a much wider view of things. If they're not straight up immortal, they tend to live for just immense lifespans. And that would tend to give you a slightly different perspective on long-term planning and caring about your surroundings. Dwarves are also often long-lived, and they build things to last a long time. In many more modern works of fiction, especially like urban fantasy, you have vampires who are the environmental advocates. In Shadowrun, it's dragons, with a few notable exceptions. And I say, yeah. No shit. It becomes a lot more difficult to not give a shit about global warming if you're personally going to experience all of its ill effects. This is why, with each new generation, more and more people care deeply about the environment. And that makes a lot of sense. Because with every new generation, the likelihood that you will personally experience the fallout of the just immense havoc that we are wreaking on the environment just increases by a lot. And I do also see a lot of people who are young right now who go like, oh, I'll be 70 when the really bad stuff happens with the climate change. So really, I don't plan on having children of my own, so I don't give a shit, and I'm just gonna continue polluting. Because, you know, just simply not caring about anyone who isn't your immediate biological offspring doesn't make you a borderline fucking sociopath for some reason. What is wrong with you even? And so that is now a perspective you can no longer take, because you will be around. But Burger, what about my overpopulation? I've said this before, I will say it again. Overpopulation is not really a problem for technologically advanced societies, because not only do they drastically increase the carrying capacity of their environment while having a relatively speaking much smaller impact, they also remove many of the incentives that people have to have many kids. And if you have people with like decades and centuries of expertise in their particular fields or in various different fields, that tends to sort of drastically increase the speed at which your technology progresses. Also, and this is very important, a lot of people just have kids because they're afraid of not having kids. Because sure, you might prefer the idea of enjoying another 50 years of freedom with your partner where you can do basically whatever you want, but what if it turns out that you did want children and that was the thing that would have made you happy? You have to have the kids before hitting a certain age. And if you don't make that, you're kinda fucked. When you're biologically immortal, this isn't really a problem anymore. Just, you know, hang out, be young, and have freedom for like a century or two, then be a highly educated and resourceful and empathetic parent that spends as much time with their children as they need, probably have accrued enough financial means to just take completely time off work to focus solely on your children, and then, when your children are grown up, you're still biologically immortal, so you're never salty at them for taking away your youth. So you can add people just putting off having kids for a long period of time until we have better technology and have, I don't know, say colonized space, to the list of factors that would regulate overpopulation in such a scenario. I don't understand why we so easily accept these tropes in fantasy fiction, but just refuse to see the parallels that they have with the real world. A change in perspective can just massively alter you as a person. A lot of astronauts can describe the feeling of looking down at the planet from space and realizing how fragile and how magnificent and beautiful the planet, its environment, and the people who live on it are. That changes things deep inside of you. And imagine, like, realizing that you're gonna live for centuries and millennia. That's an even bigger paradigm shift. Imagine just how much kinder and more considerate you would become alone. Really, biological immortality is not just a moral good for the environment, but for society as a whole. Thank you very much for watching this video that I had to record twice because I forgot to hit the fucking record button. This has never happened to me before, ever. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Subscribestar or Patreon, buying some of my beautiful merchandise, which I should add more items to, I think, right about now. And also the beautiful short story collection that I have that people have been enjoying tremendously for some reason. And in that spirit, be kind to your fellow people, obviously, even if you're not immortal. And also be, like, good to the environment, obviously, also if you're not immortal. This is not about whether or not you should do that. You definitely should do that. It's about how you would care. And see you around, cunts.